All right, gang. Welcome to the weekly Met Forum video chat. It's Sunday, July 30th. Hope you enjoy the show. Real short forum roundup for us this week. I got just a couple of things I want to be sure that I mention. And also, as we do that, as I promised last week, I'm going to give you just a handful of tips about using your iOS device, particularly your iPhone, as a scanning device. So we'll get right into that, and hopefully you'll find it very useful. First of all, I think I mentioned this last week, but if I didn't, the update to Sierra is out. We're up to 10.12.6 now. This is not a public beta update. This is a release update, an actual for release update. I haven't mentioned, as you know, I haven't mentioned the High Sierra update, which is the next OS that'll be coming out soon. I haven't mentioned that because that's still in beta. I'm not even going to talk about that right now until we get closer to final release time. There are a lot of things going on with that one, a lot of changes that have been made as far as it's using a completely different file structure. It's moving away from HFS Plus, which has been in use for a number of years. So I'm going to save my comments for that until we get to release date. When we do that, I'll have some ideas for you about whether it makes any difference in speed and some other issues. But for now, we're up to 10.12.6 on the actual release, and that's the current version. All right, and that's been really stable. I've been running the beta of that one, as well as I now have the final release on a partition on a different drive. I try to keep one OS that's the current and one OS behind. So I've got right now 3 different partitions working. I've got the beta of High Sierra in one place. I've got a Sierra installation. That's my stable installation when I need to make dead certain sure that things are working correctly. And then I've also got a hard drive that has El Capitan on it, because El Capitan is capable of booting either my iMac or an older MacBook Pro that I have. El Capitan is the last OS that MacBook Pro would run. So I've got a hard drive that has each of those on there, so I can shift back and forth kind of as needed. I realize that's a little atypical, but there you go. All right, let's look at a couple of other things that we have here. We had a question in a forum thread about how you go about naming Bluetooth devices. And I'm going to look at my devices real quick. I forget whether any of mine are unnamed. Okay, as you can see, all of mine that are in this list are named. Okay? You know, a lot of times when you pair a Bluetooth device, you will see a series of numbers, much like the address on an Ethernet card, if you've ever looked at that. And that's just not very descriptive when you're trying to figure out which device is which. So you can name it. Okay, and what you're going to do is you can right-click, and your option is to name it. Now here it says rename because I already named this. But you're going to go ahead, and this, of course, is inside the Bluetooth thing, preference pane. You've already paired the device. You right-click on it, and you're going to get a naming option. Now, I'm going to rename this real quick just so you can see how it works. I'm going to quickly rename my trackpad. So let's just call it Magic, for example. Okay? And now you'll see I'm going to set that, and I'm going to click rename. And what was named Slidude's trackpad is now renamed Magic. It's lost its connection. I can then right-click, and reconnect. That will work with most devices. In this thread, we did have a user have an issue with something that just is not wanting to cooperate and not wanting to be renamed. But this procedure works for most devices. If you will, just simply pair the device, select it from the list, right-click it, and choose Rename. You can remove it if you want to clean up a list, and you can also disconnect. At one time, I had to clean up my list because I had 2 or 3 old Bluetooth keyboards in the list and a couple of other things that just didn't need to be on the list anymore. That's really simply done. I'm using Sierra, High Sierra for this, but I know this procedure dates back at least as far as El Capitan, and I think it was somewhat before that when they started this procedure. So that's a good one on how to rename your Bluetooth devices. As I say, you may encounter some devices that it will not work with, but before it'll work, make sure that you have paired the device with your Mac. All right, let's move on. Let's see what we have next before we move on to some of the scanning tips. All right, Charlie, one of our forum admins, posted an article about, or linked to an article, Macworld article, about Apple discontinuing the iPod Nano and Shuffle from their lineup. Now, these, if you're not familiar with these, the Nano and the Shuffle, let's see if they have these were some of the smaller iPods. A lot of people really like these for things like going to the gym to work out. If you only wanted to carry a little bit of music with you, Apple seems to be discontinuing these. I think because as more and more people move to larger and larger amounts of storage on their phones, fewer people are carrying iPods with them to places like the gym. Although there are still people who prefer these to carrying their music on a phone, because after all this time, I mean, these things are durable. They are a good entry-level device, and if all you want is a music player, this is not a bad way to go. Now, I never owned one of these, but I know a few people that have, and they love them. So we'll see how this plays. I was on the 9 to 5 Mac website recently, and I think they already have a poll up about to see what people think in terms of whether they think it was a good idea for Apple to get rid of this or not. It's in my, this does not really surprise me. I had forgotten that these were still being made, to be honest. There is a place for this, but obviously the marketing people at Apple think that these have reached the end of their life as far as the demand from new customers. All right, and then finally, this of course is the flip that I had up earlier about 10.12.6 being up, Sierra being up for upload, and we went through that just a minute ago. So that kind of takes care of the forum roundup. We had a few other things go through today and in the last week, but there were some threads that I haven't really resolved, and they're still kind of ongoing and confusing. There's a lot of stuff in the forum right now. If you get ready to post a question, remember that you have to be a member to post. And you don't want to try to post it in the Contact Us area. That's for new questions, not for, that's for questions about the way that the forum operates, not technical issues related to your hardware. You want to become a member, which is free, and then post that in the appropriate area. All right, next, and while you're at it, while you're making your initial post, go ahead and post something in there's a thread going on to introduce yourself to the forum members. Go ahead and post something there. Let us know a little bit about yourself. And all right, now let's talk about this idea of using your iPhone as a scanner. I started looking at this a couple of weeks ago, and it came about in part because we have a ton of stuff that we just been meaning to commit to paper for to digital files for a while and just hadn't gotten around to doing it. And I saw a thing online about somebody using their iPhone as a scanner and what some of the advantages they felt like they had versus a standalone scanner that came, either a standalone scanner or one that came with the printer. One of which was speed. They were able to scan a little bit faster with the phone than they would with the scanner. For me, one of the hassles with scanning has always been that the scanner is not in a convenient place in relation to the computer. So let's say I want to scan something right now. The computer is in one room, the scanner is in another. They interact wirelessly, but it still means I have to get up, go into the room, put the document to be scanned in place, close the lid, come back out, check the file to see that it's scanned properly, save it, go on to the next one, vice versa, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And where I have to sit to load things into the scanner, I end up with, okay, why did this suddenly stop with the screen share? You get to see the junk in the studio instead of the screen share, which is what I wanted you to see. All right, there we go. Let's see if we got that back up and running here. All right. We lost something.